Yeah.
Beautiful. Welcome to the Tech Growth Show. Super happy to have Sally on here. We're going to be discussing, well, we'll see, cybersecurity in general, and we'll sort of go from there. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ethan. Thank you for inviting me. Looking forward to the chat.
Of course, of course. So, yeah, could you walk me through a little bit about what you guys are doing differently when it comes to approaching cybersecurity at Covenant?
Yeah, so I mean, Covenant is about 21 years old now. We've been doing really interesting work with the defense force in the US. We've worked with multiple large corporates over the years. We were into cyber before it became a buzzword through our founder, Daniela. So what we have found is in order for us to remain relevant, we needed to make a solution for the smaller boutique businesses. As you would know, cybersecurity is quite a high skill, very expensive service to get. So what we found is if we positioned ourselves to helping the small guy, the mom and pop shops, who actually get targeted more than the large enterprises for
Yeah.
cyber, but they previously could not afford it. So we've created an environment using our technology and also just being smart about how we do security advice as well. We've made it possible for the smaller companies to get access to our service. So over the years, we've seen quite a lot of those come to be our clients, but also the NPOs and the NGOs. You'd be so surprised just how much they're not protected and they handle such large amounts of money. So that's what has made us unique over the years. And then over the past 2 years, we have really been trying to grow quite a lot. So Daniela, who I spoke about, who's the founder of the business, she heads up Covenant International. She's the overarching CEO for that. And then over the years, over the past 2-3 years, we've been growing into different regions as well. Because we've realized that in order, again, for us to remain relevant, we needed to make sure that we got representation in country and not just the ability to sell into those countries, but when people are speaking to people who look like them, people with the same life experiences, it's just better to do business with people like that.
And what have you guys been doing in order to expand into new markets? Because I know it's a pretty common thing in the cybersecurity space. People want to expand, say, from the US to Europe or vice versa, anything like that. What have you guys been doing to expand your market?
Because we've had the best luck in finding business, if you can call it. We were already doing business across the globe, particularly seeing a lot of growth in the US and the UK. But we knew that Africa is the new frontier, and that's probably why I'm here. So we intentionally grew business in Africa by making sure that we find local partners and we make the local partners equity shareholders in the business. So wherever we grow the business, we try to make sure that we find equity shareholders so that people are vested into the business. And when people have something to gain from a business, they will push it and make sure that it succeeds. So right now we've got offices in Latin America. We've got offices in the UK, we've got offices in India, and 2 in Africa, in the form of South Africa, which is the head office, and Cameroon, which is quite new actually, and we're launching it in March.
Okay. Got it. So it's been the key, you would say, has been launching those equity partners. And say you launch like an equity partner in a new space, like say the one you're launching in South Africa. How do you actually go about building the book of business there? Like what methods are you guys going to implement there?
We make sure that we build with people with networks already. So people who have a voice, people who are doing work with large corporates, medium corporates, people who are involved with the small businesses that we want to reach. So whether you're talking about your different chambers of business, so that's been a really good one for us here in South Africa. There's multiple ones in South Africa. There's multiple ones across the continent, making sure that these people that we choose to work with already have clientele. And that's not necessarily from a selfish point of view, saying we want to grow business the fastest way, but also for the partners themselves. If it's an industry that they've never had interest in, they've never grown business, it will be a nightmare for them and they won't be successful. And we want to make sure that they're successful so that, the rest of the business is successful.
For sure. And what do you think, like with you specifically, how has your previous business development experience sort of carried over into this new role in the cybersecurity space?
I think having a great understanding of the market is really important, because I think one of the biggest tools of business development as a discipline is understanding the market and understanding what the market needs, but more importantly, what the market will pay for. Because just because something is a pain point doesn't mean somebody has the will or the agency to pay for it.
Yes.
So that's what we've learned over the years, that yes, Africa is this place where 90% of the cyber attack happens to small business, where we have seen cyber attack move from being R1 billion about 5 years ago to being R6 billion now. It costs the continent, but it doesn't mean people have the agency to pay for it. So there's a lot of market education that you need to do, especially in this space, because it's a new space. So people they're still paying for it as a garage payment, right? Like insurance, I have to pay it so that I don't get hacked or whatever, but they don't really see the essence of it. So if you really want to make business, you must make sure that there's a need, but that they understand the need and they understand the risk of not paying for it. It may start off as a garage payment, but you have educated them enough for them to, in 2 years' time, to be the sort of people who pay for it willingly, knowing the benefit. They didn't fall victim to the hack, so they finally understand why it was important to invest.
For sure. No, and it's one of the common things is educating, because I mean you're speaking with non-technical people and they don't really know much about cybersecurity, so you have to actually educate them. What do you feel like are some of the main challenges when it comes to educating people, especially in a market where they're like, I have a firewall, I feel like I'm good.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. I'm about to say something that's really very interesting. This is what we've learned over the past 2 years. Actually, technical people are some of the hardest to educate. Because they know everything, right? They know how to code. They have networking experience. Some of them are developers. So and some of them sometimes the IT managers of these companies are not nearly as technically inclined as you'd imagine. So you speak with the CEO, he gets it, and then he passes you over to the CTO, and that's where the bottleneck is. Because what in the US, and you're from the States, so you'd know this, there's been so many different breaches where people had Microsoft protecting them, where people had AWS protecting them. But when you now teach people and say, just because you have a license or your environment sits in AWS doesn't actually mean they're protecting your environment. They're more protecting their environment. Your thing happens to be in the loop. And if you don't get your environment audited and built up, you are as susceptible as somebody who does not have that. So right now, we are having the conversations to show people that actually the protection that you think you have is not enough. And then you have those who say, I have firewall. But then you say to them, a firewall is only as good as protecting your internal systems and processes and platforms. But as soon as you are now going external, it is susceptible to any sort of attack.
Yes.
Yeah. So my biggest challenge has not been the layman. Our biggest challenge has been the technical people who you have to convince. Most of the time they get convinced after the attack, and unfortunately when you're coming, I mean, for us it's fine because we come and do the response, but just be much better and cost the economies less if right from predictive and just keeping it safe right from the beginning they listened to us.
For sure. And it's I mean, just like tying back to what you said earlier, like I like to think of like the trust to price ratio. It's basically like you can have a certain price and then a certain trust associated with it. And some people say like, oh, you just have to always raise prices. Well, it's like if your price is 85% of what they expected and your trust is at 65, it's going to be harder to close that deal. But the best companies in the world, the trust is super high and the relative price compared to that price is actually low. Have you guys trying to take advantage of that, or like what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. So within our space, as you would know, trust is very key.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna give you the keys to their house unless they absolutely trust you. So what we've done and how we've seen our business grow is a lot of our clients, our existing clients, worked with us in some of our other businesses. So it's just easier to translate that trust into this new venture, Covenant, for example. It's easier for them to trust us because of that. The trick now comes when you are speaking with new clients.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's hard to build trust with people who are just meeting you today. And maybe this is where we tap into our sales training, for example. Give people 7 touches. The 7 touches don't necessarily have to be you pitching to them all the time, but also you doing business or doing live with them or sending them different newsletters to say what is happening in the industry. You're building trust by becoming the thought leader, by becoming somebody who is helping them even though they're not necessarily buying from you yet. So you increase that trust. By the time they pay for your services, they will pay the right amount because they kind of know that you're not just trying to push your product, but you actually care for them as a business. So our motto is securing your way of life. We were very intentional about that. It can even sound like you're talking to an individual, and that's just fine because behind every business, there are individuals that you need to make sure that they know you've got their best interest at heart.
Absolutely. And yeah, remind me to come back to a point on that at the end there. But how do you actually judge success? Like, what are the main metrics you're looking at in order to understand, like, okay, so like me, Sally, I'm moving in the right direction when it comes to growing the business?
I don't know if you've heard of the EMPS. It's a rating score that you can have your clients give you. It's kind of superficial, but it's a great starting point to know, are you hitting the right points for your clients? Are they satisfied with you, right? That's the superficial level. But for me, the most essential level is, are they coming back? Are your clients having repeat business with you? And do they trust you enough to give you contract business? So for the first year, they'll say, oh no, come do this small thing for me and I'll pay you for the work. That's not contract business. That's a project in and out, which is what a lot of IT companies actually do, right? There's no contract business. But for me, when somebody says, Sally, I saw how you did that one thing for me last year. Can I interest you in a 5-year term with us? Then I'm happy. After the 5-year term, they come back to me, then I'm happy. But you don't get there without actually asking the clients if you're hitting the right points. Because I always say to my team that you can be so sure that you're fixing what your client wants, but you've just heard the wrong thing. And you do that so well, but that actually doesn't make a difference to your clients. So for us, I measure success by how much business I get repeated and how much contract business I have in a year. If I don't have that, even if I've made $20 million, then I know there's a problem because all of that is project. Next year, I have to start from scratch, and that's not how you run a business.
Absolutely. And like, what are you guys' main objectives going into like 2025? What do you want to achieve on that front?
So that's a big one. And we've actually launched a Cybersecurity Institute, where we are really pushed by building capacity in Africa. So how we see it is, we would love for Africa to be the place where everyone goes to when they think about cybersecurity. And that came from two things. The first thing is, I mean, we've got such we've got the makings of being. We've got the youngest community. We've got the most entrepreneurial continent. We've got affordable skills, not cheap, affordable skills. So from that point of view, it just makes sense that we become that place. But more importantly, when we looked at it is, yes, we are a boutique firm that's being hired to do a lot of the government work, a lot of the small business work. But wouldn't it be more impactful if we actually helped to build capacity for the country? Instead of hiring my US consultants who are going to come here for 2 months and build your infrastructure, why don't we help 2 young people from your country have the skills that it takes to build your own infrastructure? As you know, it's a security solidifier as well. You can't be having all of your talent to build the most important things in your country coming from outside. So then what we are looking forward to launching in an even big way next year is our CCI, our Cyber Institute, where we will be giving young graduates who, as you know, unemployment is a huge problem in South Africa and the rest of Africa, young people who are smart, intelligent, skilled, but cannot get work. We will have them in our programs for 6 to 8 months, giving them the certifications they need to be competitive, giving them the soft skills they require to stand out in the market and negotiate for great compensation, and then placing them internationally in the US, China, India to work in those particular markets for about 18 months, getting the skills fully paid, by the way, and then finally being able to really become that capacity that our country and our continent needs to build our own infrastructures, not rely on anybody else. So that's what's coming in 2025.
Very nice. I really like the sound of that. That's very good. Well, I don't know if it can end it on any of a better note. So yeah, Sally, appreciate your time here. Super excited to what you're gonna see going into Africa, expanding the market, educating people here. Where could people find you if they do want to reach out or speak with Sally or with Covenant?
You can find us on our LinkedIn, Covenant International, Covenant Solutions, Security Solutions International. You can find us on Covenant Africa on LinkedIn as well. But you can also go on to our website, which is covenantsec.io. And depending on where in the world you are, there'll probably be an office close to whomever wants to reach out for that local context, which is ever so important to us.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ethan.